Pablo, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? How's things, Pablo? T, good to see you. So how you doing? How you been? How's things? Kerry, good to see you. So how you doing? What's up, Mars? What's up, CMF? How you been, Kerry? How's things? Lee, good to see you. So how you doing? Evening. How you been? Scott, good to see you. So brother, how you doing? How you been? I still haven't replied back to your message, Scott. I had to reply back to him. Apologies about that. JP, good evening. Miles and all CMF, good to see you. Well, JP, how you doing? How you been? How's things? Hi, Miles and CMF. Stormy, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Big news today. Let's go, Gary. How you doing? Scott, let's go. Miles was publicized on the post. I actually wasn't. It was an edit, but good edit, Gary. Hi, everyone. Good to see you also. How you been? Hello, mate. Hope you're good. Louis, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Miles, what do you think of Solana? Is it the fastest? Is Solana the fastest? No, not by a long shot. The fastest blockchain, technically on paper, is the XRP ledger. It's the fastest, it's the cheapest, and it's the one that always works. It's confirmed it's always going to work. Solana, when it gets congested, payments don't go through. It has difficulties. The network has crashed 11 times on paper. So Solana's furthest away from the fastest in any sort of a way, because it's not even operative sometimes. Shout out to big money Miles. Kerry, good to see. Thank you, brother. Hello, Miles and CMF commenters. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Hi, Miles. Hope you're well. Dennis, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Scott, let's go. I'm away from the computer, but I'm listening. Let's go, Stormy. No problem. Even Miles and CMF. Manny, good to see you. How you doing? How you been, Manny? Okay, let's do. By the time everyone tunes in one by one, let's do intro, disclaimer, and what we're going to be talking about tonight's live. A lot of news has been happening in terms of the SEC tonight, which we're going to go through. Hester Pierce has done a few essentially sit downs, one with Bloomberg, one essentially doing another speech on what she presumes was going to be happening inside the SEC moving forward in terms of regulations coming out, in terms of essentially Paul Atkins coming in and replacing the acting chairman, Mark, inside the SEC. Hi, CMF. What do you think about Remitix? Thanks. As far as I'm aware, it's a scam project, Remitix. So stay away from it. Good evening, Miles and CMF. Callie, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Evening, brother Miles and the CMF family. Good to see you as well, Funky brother. How you been? How's things? What's up, Miles? Let's go, Funky brother. Hello to my CMF family on YouTube. Let's go, Scott. Evening, Miles and family. Ian, good to see you. How you doing? Good evening, Miles and CMF. Bull XRP, good to see you. How you doing? Evening. So there has been some news, essentially, which we're going to go through tonight's live regarding the Fed. We've had speeches coming in from Jerome Powell on what he essentially has, heard and gone through regarding the debanking. Interesting to see that Jerome Powell is actually coming in favor of the cryptocurrency space even more now, talking about how banks are, not working with crypto companies, and that needs to be addressed inside the United States to bring innovation. This is Jerome Powell saying these things, so that's immense, coming from him. Good evening, Miles and CMF. Orphan, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, Miles and CMF. Lena, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? So, Soul 100% Miles. Soul 100% right, Miles. Let's go, Addy. Welcome to the CMF Live if you're watching us for the first time ever. The CMF stands for Crypto Miles Family. My name is Miles. I go by the persona of Crypto Miles. I'm the host of this live Monday to Friday, 11:25 p.m. UK time. This live airs. And on this live, I talk about the most recent news that's happening around the world in terms of cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, regulations. Vital information for you to know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. Now, we also do Q&As on this live as well, which means if you do have any questions, put it down inside the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer the questions you may have. And the disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. So if you're watching this for the first time ever, welcome to the CMF. If you're watching this as a regular, let's go CMF. And I just want to take a second just to say, I want to take a second just to say thank you so much to everybody that's liking this live on X, because I'm getting notifications from X. Thanks so much to everyone who's liking this live on X on the CMF, and if you're new, you're doing this as well. Thanks so much to everyone that's retweeting this live on X, and thanks so much to also everyone that's liking each other's comments outside the live and hashtagging the XRP Army. Also, thank you so much to everyone on YouTube who's watching us right now and also liking the live as well. Now, let's do a breakdown of what we're going to be talking about on tonight's episode. By the way, it's episode 260 we're on right now, which is incredible. So, here's a breakdown of what we're going to go through on tonight's episode. We're going to be talking about the golden age of digital assets, a perspective essentially coming out from the US Crypto Council. Then we're going to be talking about tonight's live regarding the key insights on the upcoming US essentially inflation report. Are we going to be having rate cuts? Are we not going to be having rate cuts? That is what's coming up essentially very soon. Then we're going to be talking about the Fed, Jerome Powell, his new essentially speech on cryptocurrency, CBDCs, the debanking situation when it comes to crypto projects and crypto companies inside the United States. Then we're also going to be talking about tonight's live regarding another country that's decided to fast track essentially all of their crypto regulations and policies and their ETF applications. And that is Ukraine. Even a country that is essentially in a war zone is thinking about, not getting left behind from this digital future. Yesterday, I revealed that South Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore, India, they're all lining up not to get left behind from this digital space we're entering into because of Donald Trump. Going to this digital future is going to bring a lot of money to the table. And even a country in a war zone is thinking about, they don't want to get left behind. Ukraine, for example. We're also going to be talking about Franklin Templeton on tonight's live as well, due to their new essentially filings with one particular crypto asset. We're also going to be talking about another essentially ETF filing from another major essentially asset management firm. We're also going to be talking about the New York Stock Exchange, essentially Accra files to list a Grayscale first ever spot. I'll tell you what the crypto project is once we get to it. We're also going to be talking about tonight's live regarding Binance and the SEC agreeing to pause all their litigation processes for 60 days. I'll tell you what that essentially means moving forward for Binance and the SEC and what repercussions that could possibly have for any other cases pending against the SEC. We're also going to be talking about the EU on tonight's live. The EU has suggested to invest up to $206 billion to essentially AI developments and to stay ahead in the AI space and the AI field. And a lot more other countries were involved in this signing. And some countries decided not to sign the documentation. We're also going to talk about that on tonight's live. We're also going to be talking about Hester Peirce on tonight's live, the SEC commissioner, who is extremely pro-crypto. She's came out with her perspective on the market space in terms of regulations and what so far they've done inside the SEC, what should have been done a long time ago inside the SEC. And we're going to be talking about another perspective from Hester Peirce, but this time she's on essentially Bloomberg, talking about all the things that they are going to be doing once Paul Atkins comes into place. We're also going to be talking about Wall Street on tonight's live as well. Wall Street, essentially banks apparently are gearing up for crypto deals aimed at Trump's pro-crypto policies coming ahead. And Wall Street is getting ready essentially to move extremely quick in terms of once the regulations are dropped, they are going to be pouncing on multiple ETFs from altcoins and getting heavily involved inside the blockchain sector and not just the AI sector. So, before we go through any of those news topics, the first one being the golden age of digital assets, a perspective from the US Crypto Council. Let's go inside the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions, put it down inside the comment section. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have. So let's go inside the comment section first, and let me go straight into the first news, which is regarding the golden age of cryptocurrencies, a perspective from the US Crypto Council. Let's see where we were inside the comment section, then we go straight into that first news. Morning, Miles and CMF. Solomon, good to see you as well. How you doing? Morning. Good evening, Miles and CMF. Ring Forever, good to see you as well. How you doing? How's things? Hey, Miles, hope you're well. Yama, good to see you. How you doing? Hope you're well as well. Did you watch the Jerome Powell testifying today where he was asked about anything about crypto? Well, we do have things to go on regarding Jerome Powell and his crypto speeches on tonight's live, which we're going to go through. Good evening, Miles and all CMF. So good to be able to join your live once again. How you doing? Good to see you as well, Ian. Long time. Good evening, Brother Miles and CMF Flea XRP. Good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Good evening. Hello from Europe. How you doing, Jim? Hey, Miles. Mickey, good to see you as well. How you doing? How's things? So, let's go for the first news, which is regarding US Crypto Council. The US Crypto Council charts course for a golden age of digital assets. The Crypto Council, based inside the United States for Innovation, is now calling for a regulatory reset of the cryptocurrency sector under President Donald Trump to ensure that the US remains competitive in this major field. This landmark essentially hearing will gather industry leaders, policymakers, and financial experts to discuss new legislative solutions that are likely to create a golden age of digital assets. The hearing will cover current blockchain use cases, look at how the industry was stifled during essentially President Donald Trump's during Joe Biden's essentially presidency and time in office, and discuss the consumer protection regulations that are needed along with other legislations to unlock crypto's potential in the US. Some of the key participants will include cryptocurrency specialists such as Jose Fernandez from PayPal, Jonathan from Kraken Crypto Exchange, Timothy from Harvard University. In a written testimony to Congress, Jae-Hun Kim, President and Acting CEO of Crypto Council for Innovation, CCI, emphasized that the importance of a clear, comprehensive digital asset policy at the federal essentially level. He noted that the international competitors such as the European Union, the United Kingdom, Japan, and Singapore are advancing with essentially massive clear regulations, putting the United States at risk of falling behind. Kim outlined 4 key legislative priorities to ensure that the US remains a global leader in the digital asset space, and these priorities include passing comprehensive market structure legislations, passing stablecoin legislations, enhancing coordination between the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) and the Commodities Futures Trading Commission (CFTC), and supporting decentralized finance and individual empowerments. As Coy Garrison, a partner at essentially Steptoe law firm, noted that the SEC, CFTC, and the FDIC are all working together to bring crypto businesses back to the US after undoing many of the restrictive policies implemented during the former president, Sleepy Joe or Joe Biden. Garrison's testimony essentially also emphasized the necessities of congressional actions to oversee spot essentially market digital asset tradings, in addition to the SEC's responsibility to provide regulatory clarity within its existing essentially jurisdictions. He said the timing is right for Congress and the administration to work together to implement a much needed regulatory framework for digital assets in the United States. One of the witnesses is essentially Timothy, a Harvard essentially research fellow and a former chair of the Commodities Futures and Trading Commission (CFTC) during the Obama administration. In his testimony, he provides a detailed critique of the Stablecoin Act, the House essentially stablecoin bill. The Senate also has the Genius Act bill, which is somewhat similar to that matter. He also prefers rulemaking and clarity over regulation by enforcement. However, he has compared DeFi to driving a car without brakes and is not keen on self-hosted wallets for stablecoins. On the other hand, he essentially objects to assertions that digital assets are mainly used for illicit activities and believes that crypto is here to stay. Look, I'll be honest, the people that have invited essentially for this US crypto essentially major event that's happening inside the United States, the US Crypto Council is having a sit down with policymakers, legislators, and Congress members and so on, and former essentially commissioners of the CFTC and so on. Some of them have good points, some of them have, well, one of them has very ridiculous points on the market space, and that being essentially Timothy, what an absolute moron he is. But other than Timothy, everybody else who's invited to this event to make speeches about the cryptocurrency space in terms of legislations moving forward, in terms of legislators or Congress members or Senate members or essentially CEOs and executives, they all have valid points. The US should be moving faster. It is moving fast enough compared to the previous administration, which didn't move at all, to be fairly honest. The United States was ranking 11th inside the entire world, while Singapore was ranking 1st when it comes to crypto registration policies. Dubai and Hong Kong were ranking 2nd, hand in hand, and the rest of the world pretty much followed. But the US is moving fast enough, to be fairly honest. I mean, Trump has signed an executive order for essential cryptocurrencies to become the capital hub inside the United States. We have 21 states that have all applied for some sort of crypto stockpile inside the United States or a Bitcoin reserve. We have a stockpile reserve also coming at a federal level inside the United States. We have new chairmen for the SEC, CFTC, even though they're acting chairmen, they're all pro-crypto. A crypto task force that was created overnight. The CFTC also created 2 task forces, one for helping crypto innovation and one for essentially for fraud instead of enforcements. The FDIC is no longer essentially stifling crypto companies from working with banks or people getting essentially self-hosted wallets. So a lot of pro things have been happening inside the United States. But yes, they can do a lot more still, and there's still a lot more that needs to be done. One of them being that the cases need to get dropped by the SEC, which they're going to eventually very soon. and they have to get dropped very soon, to be fairly honest, either dismissal or settlements. But we're going to talk later on a bit more on the SEC from Hester Pierce's perspective on why the SEC is moving slightly slow, but also moving fast enough. But yeah, we're going to have a crypto council meeting happening inside the United States, which once that news essentially comes out on what was discussed behind those doors, I'll be definitely sharing them on this live. But just for your update, there's a crypto council meeting happening inside the United States with executives and CEOs and legislators and council members and former commissioners of the CFTC. Now, staying on the topic of essentially data reports and, essentially meetings and so on, the US is about to be coming out with their inflation report, the upcoming US inflation report. That is definitely going to have some sort of implications on the market space, either positive or negative. If the US comes out and says we're going to do rate cuts, then it's a positive for the crypto space. If the US comes out and says we're going to pause rate cuts even further, then it's a slight negative for the crypto space. It's not going to affect the long-term, be a very short-term volatility. Maybe a day after that, we'll go back to normal. Now, the Fed has clearly indicated that there will be no monetary expansions this year. While essentially assets such as SPX and gold remain strong, negativity essentially is increasing in cryptocurrencies. Concerns over inflation as the target drifts away, combined with Donald Trump's tariffs, have pushed predictions for the first interest rates cuts of the year to July. Here is what you need to know before this inflation report arrives in a few hours, pretty much. The US inflation report for January will be released tomorrow. And aimed worries that the Fed will miss its inflation targets, investors are anxious. Experts expect that the inflation will not significantly change compared to December. However, there is a hope that the upcoming data will signal that the Fed's potential to begin cutting interest rates again could possibly happen. Bank of America's economist Stephan has expressed concerns that the risks surrounding inflation are skewed to the upside. Indeed, recent statements from the Fed members align with this, essentially with this statement. Inflation is above the target, risks are to the upside, economic activity is strong, and the labor market seems stable around full employment, is what the Bank of America is essentially saying, the economists from Bank of America. If our January CPI forecast comes true, the Fed's pause will be further solidified, he stated. According to the CME group data, investors expect the Fed to implement a quarter-point rate cut in July, followed by another pause. This essentially expectation has shifted from May to July, previously set for September, hence forecasts are changing rapidly. Dow Jones expects a monthly increase of 0.3% and an annual increase of 2.9% for the January CPI reports, and the annual essentially expectation for core inflation, excluded food and energy costs, is essentially set at 3.1%. According to Goldman Sachs, we will see increases in automobile prices and essentially insurance costs reflected in January's data, while housing costs are expected to exert to the weak downward essentially pressure. Goldman's economists noted that their latest forecast that moving forward, due to rebalancing in the automobile industry, rentals and labor markets, we anticipate more essentially throughout this year, although there may be balancing acts due to raising essentially tariff policies. And if the data aligns and Trump's tariffs do not yield unexpected negativity short-term results, confidence is combating inflation and may increase. Now, what if Trump decides to essentially negotiate? Such negotiations seem unlikely for now. And even if Jerome Powell has begun to state that the free essentially trade greatly benefits countries outside the United States, which makes him appear to support Trump. So is Jerome Powell going to be coming out in his big speech and supporting Trump? Or is he going to be pausing inflation? Now, in terms of interest rate cuts, Donald Trump obviously wants rate cuts to happen inside the United States, because the longer we pause rate cuts, the bigger the crisis bubble situation becomes. So if you do drastic rate cuts, then we can also enter essentially a bubble crisis situation. But recurring rate cuts at a small percentage of 0.25% wouldn't impact the market space too much. And it's positive for the crypto space, positive for the United States in general. So Jerome Powell needs to come out and start doing some rate cuts. Not drastic ones, but small rate cuts along the way, essentially, is the beneficial way. Is what Goldman Sachs is also essentially wants. Now, they did also talk about the tariff situation that Donald Trump is doing. I've said this before, I stand by tariffs. Tariffs need to happen to put countries in line with essentially Donald Trump's path. It's the only way to do it. It's the only way for essentially the United States to gain their power and their authority back, because they did lose it essentially during Biden's presidency. But now Trump is getting that power back and that authority back for the United States, which is great to see. And it's also, showing, regarding the BRICS nations, as I revealed previously, regarding Russia going against BRICS, regarding India going against BRICS, and so on. South Africa essentially is going to be going against BRICS as well. And it seems like China is going to be the only one standing by itself in terms of BRICS. But putting that to one side, the tariff situation, as I said previously, tariffs will cause slight volatility inside the market space, but they won't last too long. The effects don't last too long inside the market space. They last max 48 hours inside the market space, 24 to 36 to 48 hours. After that, they're pretty much gone, the effects. So Jerome Powell comes out in favor of Donald Trump. It actually will work out in his favor even more by doing rate cuts. Now, on the topic of Jerome Powell came out and talked positive about the crypto space, you could say. For the first time in his entire life, he talked positive, but essentially about the cryptocurrency sector. Now, he did talk positive quite recently as well about cryptocurrencies. How he said, that it can operate without, it can operate inside the United States and so on, which was his first time saying positive things. Now he made major comments regarding the cryptocurrency sector and CBDCs and stablecoins and pretty much everything else. But before we go through that, before we go through Jerome Powell's speech, let's go inside the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions, put it down inside the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. So let's go inside the comment section first, and then we go straight into the Jerome Powell speech regarding cryptocurrencies, banking, CBDCs, and everything else. Let's go see what's happening inside the comment section, and we'll go straight into that news. Let's see where we were at. We were at here. Hi, how you doing, Brandon? Ben Armstrong, aka BitBoy, is missing as per Casey, his girlfriend. That's unusual. I didn't know about that one. Thank you for the update, G. Even in Miles and CMF, Joe, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? What's going on with markets when our important dates unfolding? All I see is the markets, Johnny, good to see you. How you doing? The markets will move, but we do need regulations for that move to happen. The market right now is waiting for regulations because the next clientele coming in are institutional clientele. Institutions want a safety net inside the market space. We actually have news to go through regarding Wall Street, how they're actually preparing to enter the market space, the crypto market space, but they're just waiting for regulations to drop from Trump's administration, being essentially the CFTC and SEC. Now, hi Miles and family. Alex, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Why are XRP's price so speculative? I've seen ranges from $25 to $20,000. Great question. Is $20,000 per XRP even possible? Also great question. The big question is, can XRP reach essentially $20,000 per token? Can XRP reach $100,000 per token? It's the number one question inside the crypto space where everybody comes out and says, some say yes, some say no. I'm on the side of yes. I've always been on the side of yes. You've got to understand what XRP is trying to achieve and why it can reach that price point. The simplest way to put it is XRP is trying to become like Swift, for example. Swift's biggest downfall, as I said previously, is not because it's expensive and it's slow, because it's being used for heavily for years upon years. Now, they do presume that, they do come out and say, well, Swift is slow and expensive. That's why it needs to be replaced. Another reason why Swift is actually being replaced, the genuine reason why Swift is being replaced, is because Swift has been used as a political tool where it goes around and sanctions other countries and their entire banking system gets left behind from the rest of the world. But when you have a decentralized system like the XRP ledger, there's no more going around and essentially sanctioning countries from not using the XRP ledger, let's just say. So the biggest downfall of Swift wasn't that it was slow and expensive. It was essentially that it was a political tool, not a payment tool or a messaging standard. That's the biggest downfall of Swift. Now, Swift is able to move a certain amount of money per day. Now, that money that Swift is moving per day is leaving out small and medium-sized businesses inside the United States and pretty much around the world. Small and medium-sized businesses don't tend to use Swift because the fees are too high. So that's where the fee situation comes in. Now, with a system like the XRP ledger, small and medium-sized businesses will also be able to do international deals and grow their businesses worldwide. One of the reasons is, and also Ripple did do a PDF documentation or a blog post on their own website. If you want to go check it out on Ripple's own website, where they talked about how the XRP ledger, and Ripple essentially with the XRP ledger is very focused on small and medium-sized businesses around the world, because those businesses were the ones that were getting mostly left out from that whole SWIFT payment system. Small and medium-sized businesses weren't able to expand their businesses worldwide because the fees were too high, and it just didn't make any sense for them to expand internationally due to the cost. And what I'm trying to say is SWIFT is able to move a certain amount of money, and it's only based on large companies doing business internationally, some medium-sized companies to large doing international business trades. But once you introduce a XRP ledger essentially system to that payment, then we're talking about small, medium, and large-sized businesses doing transactions 24/7. So the money that SWIFT is bringing to the table can double over time. The money that essentially SWIFT is moving per day can double over time, because small and medium-sized businesses will also get involved in international businesses. Then, putting aside payments, we also have the tokenization space, which the derivatives market space is essentially estimated at $4 quadrillion. The derivatives market space is estimated at $4 quadrillion. They're not really sure where it stands. Then we have the real estate market space, which is also going to get tokenized. Then the automotive industry, which is also going to get tokenized. Then the bonds essentially market space, the arts essentially market space, the collectible market space, the oil industry, the stock market in terms of tokenization. Everything around you is going to get tokenized. So adding the tokenization market space, and then adding essentially what XRP Ledger can bring to the table in terms of going above and beyond when it comes to SWIFT, and getting an entire market space that is not being able to use SWIFT, small and medium-sized businesses around the world, and get them involved in doing international trades, we're talking about a drastic change and a drastic amount of money coming to the table. So can XRP reach $20,000, $100,000? Hell yes. Hope that answers your question. Is it going to be overnight, or is it going to be over time? It's going to be over time. But it can happen quickly due to regulations. You've got to also understand that the amount of contracts that have been signed with Ripple. So every time a contract gets signed with Ripple, people say, oh, Ripple signed a new business, but the price didn't move, which has always been that, gimmick that people use as a sentencing. And I've always said to people, you've got to realize that when Ripple signs a contract with a major firm or payment system, essentially, and people say, oh, well, the price of XRP didn't move, it's because it's not supposed to at that moment in time. Once two companies come together and sign a contract, then they go into essentially research mode, more research mode, development mode, testing mode, and so on. That could take 2 years on whatever they're building to come out with, or even 4 years. That's why the prices move also when that's, essentially when you hear a contract or a partnership, people go, oh, well, Ripple's price didn't move, XRP didn't move, even though they have a new contract, because it's not supposed to. It's not Hollywood. People assume that Hollywood is reality. In the Wolf of Wall Street, they sign a new contract with a company and everybody makes $60 million the next day. That's not the reality. The reality of the real world is when two companies sign a contract, they go into deep development mode, research mode, and testing mode. They spend a lot of money to get to where they want to be. That could be 2 years, 4 years, 5 years down the line before they launch, and then you'll see price movement happening, but not when the contracts are signed. That's the reality of how the world works inside the corporate sector. Now, also, on that basis of price movements for XRP, a lot of market spaces in the field. So the number one question is, can it reach that price point? Yes, hell yes, it could definitely reach that price point. Due to it's getting access to an untapped market space, small and medium-sized businesses, derivatives market space estimated to $4 quadrillion. They don't even know where it stands at. Then the real estate, automotive, and so on, so on, and so on. Yes, it could definitely reach that price. Evening, Miles. Greetings, Miles and CMF. Hope all is well. Good to see you as well. How you been, Mike? I'm guessing everybody from the CMF wanted to hear that regarding me seeing those price points. Also, one other thing, a lot of people think that it's going to take a lot of time. Some people assume that it's going to take up till 5 years later, we'll see XRP reach those price points. It could be sooner. It could be a lot more sooner. You've got to understand that Ripple made a tremendous amount of contracts about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. They signed those contracts. So whatever they were building, they pretty much built it. We got to a stage now where Bank of America's CEO, coming out recently in the World Economic Forum, stating that banks are ready to use cryptocurrencies because they did their contracts. Ripple did their contracts a long time ago. They did all the building and testing and the research phase with all those companies they signed with. So we got to a stage now once The cases drops, dismiss the settlements, and then we get to a stage where essentially it's regulations, and that's pretty much adoption. So we got to a stage of no more testing and research, it's just activate. So cases get drops, dismissal, settlements, which we're going to talk about a little bit on tonight's live. And then essentially the price movement will be happening. Now, good day, Miles and CMF. Good to see you on mic. How you doing? How you been? Brother, when do you think the case will be over? Thank you, and God bless you and your parents. April, thank you so much for the kind words. When do I think the case is going to be over? It has to be over quarter one or quarter two. It just has to be. There's no way this case is going to be dragged on in any sort of a way. Because I know for a fact the SEC doesn't want to go to court and go against Ripple. The SEC removed their head lawyer that was essentially signing the documents against Ripple and essentially Coinbase and Binance and so on. They removed the head lawyer and put him in charge of the, not in charge, but they put him in the IT department. And then they dismantled their enforcement. They got rid of 50 lawyers because they're not going to be suing essentially crypto companies anymore. They're becoming a friendly agency towards the cryptocurrency sector and so on. So they're not going to be going into the Second Circuit courts or essentially any other court litigation processing on continuing this suing against Ripple, because it does not make any sort of sense. Also, Hester Pierce has said in the past, the SEC commissioner and current SEC commissioner, she said in the past she doesn't even know why they're suing Ripple. And she's the head of the crypto task force that was created essentially within 24 hours after Gary Gensler left overnight. So it should be quarter one, quarter two. We're out pretty much on that. But then we also had yesterday where I shared news from Eric and James, who are Bloomberg ETF analyst specialists, where Eric and James said there's a 65% chance that we're going to get some sort of noise coming from the SEC regarding XRP ETFs this week. So if we get some sort of a noise coming in from essentially SEC or a nod of approval from the SEC in terms of XRP ETFs, 65% chance, Eric and James said. And Eric and James are, top, incredibly intelligent people from Bloomberg, ETF specialist analysts, to be very correct on their timelines in the past. They have given XRP a 65% chance of this week getting some sort of a nod of approval from the SEC. If we do get an XRP ETF, then the case has to be dropped pretty much straight after. Because the SEC cannot approve an essentially XRP ETF and then not essentially, dismiss or settlement their case against the Ripple. This doesn't make any sense. They can't give XRP a green light while at the same time suing them. So that needs to be dropped as well. So that's a perspective coming from Eric and James, Bloomberg ETF specialist analyst, which I reviewed yesterday. They said there's a 65% chance that the SEC is going to give some sort of a nod of approval on XRP this week. 65% chance. And to put it in perspective, Eric and James were the ones that predicted the timeline for the Bitcoin ETF. When everybody else said Bitcoin ETFs are never going to happen, Eric and James were the ones that said, yes, they are going to be happening. They're going to be happening in this exact month and this exact date. And it did happen. And everybody said Ethereum ETFs will never happen. Even Michael Saylor said Ethereum ETFs will never happen. Eric and James said, yes, it will happen. And it did happen exactly when they said it was going to happen. Now they're saying XRP has a 65% chance. Does leave room for error, but 65% chance is still high. Now, Miles, when the switch will happen, will XRP explode like a meme coin, or will it increase bit by bit? It should increase bit by bit. It'll do drastic jumps. It could do jumps due to the retail section being very hyped up on it, but bit by bit will be from institutions and banks. Some might say he is afraid of losing his job. Maybe. I think XRP will get to $30 or $35 this year unless something essentially miraculous happens. It's a possibility. Has US, because there's an outcome, has the US stopped printing money? No, the US will never stop printing money. Yes, they have. You can say up to a certain extent. Up to a certain extent. Hi, Miles and CMF. Hope everyone is doing well. Ronnie, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been, Ronnie? Better than sitting on the fence for a change. Let's go, Shelly. What do you feel is a realistic competition to XRP? What do I feel like is a realistic competition to XRP? Another crypto project that could be a competition to XRP? None. Look, XRP, XLM, XDC, they're pretty much in the same field, the financial sector. And they can essentially, XRP, XLM, and XDC, they pretty much stay in the financial sector. And They pretty much do this exact same thing, but in a different way. But in terms of an actual competition to XRP, none. XRP will always be ranking number one inside the financial sector, with X7 and XDC pretty much following in suit. But there's no competition to it whatsoever. Twin Towers, XRP, oh. Thanks for the answer, Miles. No problem, Johnny, anytime. Now, Fed Jerome Powell made a speech about CBDCs, cryptocurrencies, banks when it comes to cryptocurrencies and everything else. So here is his big speech. Jerome Powell, Fed, says he's also worried about debanking that strained US crypto. Jerome Powell being, essentially kind towards the crypto space is an interesting take, to be fairly honest. So here it is. As crypto firms and their new government allies rally against US regulators for chasing them out of banking, Jerome Powell says that such tales are a worry he'll address. When confronted by members of the Senate Banking Committee about concerns over the debanking situation when it comes to cryptocurrencies in the industry, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said he's also worried about it, and he essentially is already tweaking internal supervision policies at the Fed. He said, I too am troubled by the quantity of these reports. Jerome Powell said in a routine testimony before the Senate Banking Committee on Tuesday that he offered that one theory is that banks are just very risk averse about money laundering rules and aggressive supervision under which they are unwilling to welcome customers that may stretch their compliance demands, which up to a certain extent is a load of BS. The reason why banks essentially didn't work with crypto companies inside the United States is because they weren't allowed to. The FDIC was the one sending 20 letters to banks inside the United States to not work with crypto companies. In fact, the FDIC took it a step further, apparently coming from a representative, that the FDIC was suing their own employees if they ever talked about how they were stifling banks from working with crypto companies. And the subject about how banks, essentially didn't want to get involved inside the crypto space because of the crypto space being such a risk area, why they don't want to work with crypto companies because crypto is money laundering and so on, is also a load of BS. Yes, banks and institutions would like some regulations in place so they know what line to cross or what line not to cross. However, the topic of banks being too scared of illicit activities and money laundering is a load of BS. JP Morgan has paid numerous amounts of fines for essentially moving money around from different illicit organizations. HSBC has also been in the same boat, so is Barclays, so is Lloyds, so is Santander, so is Bank of America. Every bank on this planet has moved some sort of illicit activity money from illicit groups. So on the topic of they didn't want to get involved in crypto because crypto was illicit activity, because crypto was linked to illicit activities, is a load of BS. Because every bank on this planet has paid some sort of a fine, even multiple times, for moving money that they knew on purpose was from illicit groups. So don't, what I'm trying to say is to Jerome Powell is don't picture banks as these kind-hearted moral seekers, which they're not in reality. They're money-hungry, greedy people. He said, we're determined to take a fresh look at that, said Jerome Powell, who added that he's been struck by a growing number of cases of what appears to be debanking when it comes to crypto companies. Republican lawmakers and the new financial watchdogs appointed by President Donald Trump have devoted special scrutiny to the so-called debanking they say was encouraged by previous administrations in terms of the banking agencies, FDIC, including the Fed, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporations, and the Office of Controller of Currencies. Jerome Powell also thanked crypto essentially advocates, Senator Cynthia Lummis, for raising essentially in a recent debanking hearing that the Fed has policies that direct greater supervision and scrutiny on bankers who engage in controversial speeches or activities. He said that the policy is being deleted from internal manuals and it came, wherever it came from. And while the crypto oversight wasn't a central topic at Jerome Powell's hearing that happened today, a few of the industry's big issues were raised, including essentially stablecoins and CBDCs. Jerome Powell said that the Fed supports new regulatory efforts around stablecoins. The token is designed to maintain a steady value by being pegged to an asset such as the US dollars. Stablecoins may have a big future with consumers and businesses, Jerome Powell said. We can't know that now, but it is important for the development of stablecoins in a safe and sound manner that protects consumers and savers and all. And there will be regulatory frameworks within place. The chairman of the US Central Bank also gave a clear answer to his intentions regarding CBDCs. He said a threat of a digital dollar that had long concerned the US crypto firms, though no US proposal had ever really developed. When asked whether he would agree to essentially never launch a CBDC, Jerome Powell simply responded with the answer, yes. The possibility of matching Chinese and European experiments with CBDCs had grown more remote inside the United States at the election of Trump, essentially at the congressional minorities, who essentially loudly opposed to such efforts. Jerome Powell essentially spoke again at the hearing in the U.S. House of Representatives will speak again on Wednesday, essentially today, and the crypto was set to be the future topic later on in the afternoon at the hearing of the House Financial Services Committee. Now, there weren't any surprises in the Fed chairman's comments on the economy and interest rates. He said, we're in a pretty good place with this economy, said Jerome Powell in his prepared remarks. We want to make more progress on inflation, and we think our policy rate is in a good place, and we don't see any reason to be in a hurry to reduce it even further. The Fed, of course, essentially slashed rates 3 times by a total of 100 basis points in the last 4 months of 2024, a series of strong reports on the economy and inflation, though forced with central banks in mid-December to essentially abruptly shut down the idea of any future policy eases until either the economy or inflation or both showed essentially far more greater weaknesses. That's among the factors that have put a damper on crypto prices in the recent weeks. Bitcoin is showing further weakness in the afternoon trade on Tuesday, lower by 2.35% over the past 24 hours to $95,140. Because every time we hear essentially regarding interest rates and interest rate cuts, we hear that we're going to be having rate cuts. It's an indication that we're going to be having a very positive cryptocurrency market for a short period of time, anyways. But it's because rate cuts are an indication that a traditional economy is not doing too well, which means that people will hedge against it using alternative assets, which could be gold, be silver, or in this case, it could be cryptocurrencies. Hence why every time we have a rate cut, the crypto market reacts in a positive way. Every time Jerome Powell comes out and says we're pausing rate cuts, the crypto market will react in a negative way. But the impact only will last 24 to 36 to 48 hours. After that, the market will restore itself back to where it was. So these are like temporary drops if you ever want to come back inside the market space, not financial advice in any sort of a way. Now, yesterday, I revealed to everyone that a lot of countries are following essentially America's footsteps into this crypto world we're heading towards, in this digital future. And every country wants to become a digital hub for cryptocurrencies. I talked about how Japan is trying to fast track their movements, and some with patience. I talked about how Hong Kong is waiting to see how other countries get along in terms of regulations and policies, and they're trying to fast track themselves. Singapore's trying to essentially fast track themselves. India is trying to get more involved essentially inside the cryptocurrency space. So a lot of countries right now are aiming for that title, basically, of cryptocurrency hub. The more countries that aim for that title, the better it is for us inside the cryptocurrency space, because more money will be entering that essentially market space, the market space that we're in. Now, even a country that is in a war zone situation right now, like Ukraine, is trying to fast track itself in crypto legalization. I said this a long time ago. I said the moment Trump essentially, tries to make America the capital of cryptocurrencies, the world will follow America's footsteps no matter what. And Trump going towards cryptocurrencies makes the rest of the world go towards cryptocurrencies. But even a country that's in a war zone doesn't want to get left behind from this digital world. So here it is. Ukraine fast-tracking crypto legalization. Here is essentially the report that came out from Ukraine. According to a report, Ukraine is gearing up to legalize crypto by the first quarter of 2025. This initiative, led by essentially Danilo, the head of Ukraine's Parliament Committee of Finance, Tax, and Customs and Policies, aims to regulate digital assets while ensuring such a physical responsibility. He said, we aim to pass this law and legalize cryptocurrencies in the first quarter. He announced this during the Domestic Investment Opportunities Forum. Ukraine's relationship with cryptocurrencies has evolved over the past decade. In 2014, the National Bank of Ukraine dismissed Bitcoin as money surgent and citing essentially concerns of the lack of regulations in place. By 2017, the country had proposed its first draft law to recognize crypto as a property, but essentially it had stalled it and halted the entire program. And progress started to continue again in 2021 when it was moved to legalize virtual assets. However, the president Zelensky from Ukraine vetoed essentially the law back in 2022, prompting further revisions. Now, with a new draft law expected in early 2025, Ukraine is on the cusp of fully integrating cryptocurrencies into its economy. Unlike some nations that offer tax incentives to crypto users, Ukraine plans to implement a taxation model similar to that of the securities. Profits from crypto assets will be taxed upon conversion to fiat currencies, Zelensky said. He also said, in consultation with the European experts and the International Monetary Fund, we are taking a very cautious approach to using cryptocurrencies for tax exemptions, as it could potentially facilitate the tax evasion in traditional market spaces. The ongoing conflicts with Russia has underscored the potential benefits of cryptocurrencies for Ukraine. Digital assets have provided Ukrainians with alternatives for cross-border transactions, asset protection from inflation, and access to financial support without relying on traditional banking systems. Notably, cryptocurrencies have played a pivotal role in the humanitarian aid, raising nearly $70 million in early 2023 to support Ukraine's defense and relief essentially efforts. Ukraine essentially mirrors a global shift towards regulated crypto adoption. For instance, Russia recently banned crypto mining in occupied Ukrainian essentially regions, but eased domestic crypto tax policies, exempting transactions from VAT and capping income tax on crypto earnings at 15%. Similarly, Morocco is also drafting regulations to replace its 2017 ban on cryptocurrencies, and Argentina is also exploring Bitcoin payments by 2025 to enhance cryptocurrency freedom. Ukraine plans to legalize cryptocurrencies by early 2025, marks a significant step towards integrating digital assets into its financial systems. The country aims to create a transparent and legally secure framework for businesses and investors by focusing on regulation, standard taxations, and financial stability. As the global landscape of digital finance continues to evolve, Ukraine's cautious yet progressive approach positions its potential leader in the Eastern European crypto market space. So, it just shows you how deeply countries want to be involved in the cryptocurrency sector, where even a country that's experiencing war right now, pretty much, it's a very impactful war zone right now. They are also focused on not getting left behind from this digital future we're heading towards. As I said previously, the more countries that are aiming essentially for the digital future, the better it is for us. The more money they're going to be bringing to the table. But also, I'm guessing Ukraine is trying to legalize cryptocurrencies because they want more donations, because Donald Trump has completely cut them off. And talking about essentially Argentina opening their doors more to cryptocurrencies, Morocco also doesn't want to get left behind. They're going to be unbanning cryptocurrencies once again and entering the cryptocurrency space. Just like, I mean, the list of countries right now: Singapore, Japan, Hong Kong, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Russia, Ukraine, China, Australia, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Brazil, El Salvador, the United States are all aiming for the title of cryptocurrency hub. All of these countries, and there are more, that are aiming for the title of cryptocurrency hub, which is incredible. We went from a market space where nobody wanted to touch to a market space now everybody wants to get involved and nobody wants to be left behind. Now, what we're going to be talking about next on tonight's live is regarding Franklin Templeton. Franklin Templeton has decided to join the race for a particular spot ETF. Before we talk about that, let's go to the comment section first. As I said previously, this essentially is live, which means if you do have any questions, put it outside the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer the questions you may have. So let's go to the comment section first, and then we're going to be talking about Franklin Templeton's new application for one particular crypto project in terms of a spot ETF. Let's see where we are inside the comment section. Miles, I see somebody asked you, can you speak English? I saw that. How is USDT staying at number 3 and 4 by market cap if it's been delisted in lots of places already? How is USDT been essentially staying at market cap of 3 and 4 if it's been delisted in lots of places already? USDT has only been delisted from the European market space. It's still in operation around the world, except in the European market space. And in Canada, some exchanges are allowed to look, essentially in Canada and the EU is where USDT has difficulties operating. The rest of the world, it's still operating without a doubt. So that is why it's still essentially sitting at number 3. But also USDT keeps on printing more Tether. Tether keeps on printing more money, and they say they're backing whatever they're printing still. I don't believe it for a second. But again, it's just my own personal preference. This is not financial advice in any sort of a way, but I don't believe Tether actually has the backing it claims to do. For the longest time, I've said this. Tether actually paid a fine a long time ago. Tether paid a fine a long time ago because they lied about what they're backing their USDT with. They paid $14 million in fines because they lied about the backings they actually have for USDT. A long time ago, they paid this fine, which a lot of people don't remember, a lot of people essentially don't know about. But even till this day, I don't believe it for a second that Tether has the money they're claiming to have. But they keep on printing more USDT, which increases their market cap because they keep on saying we're backing the more USDT we're printing. They keep on printing 1 million USDT, 2 million USDT, 10 million USDT. Every time the market drops slightly, Tether will print essentially more USDT to pump up the market space. And they claim they're backing it. Hello, CMY. Hello, CM. How you doing, LJ? Good to see you as well. Miles, you're amazing. Troy, thank you so much for the kind words. Now, Franklin Templeton. Franklin Templeton has decided to join the ETF space for Solana. Franklin Templeton has added to the list of companies eyeing approval for a Solana spot exchange traded fund, ETF. The $1.5 trillion asset manager has filed registration documents for essentially Franklin Templeton's Solana Trust in Delaware, joining other firms looking to bring Solana spot ETFs to the United States market space. The registration sees Franklin Templeton officially enter, quickly heating up the space that's altcoin ETF applications was essentially what's happening right now. Franklin Templeton filing in Delaware hints at the spot ETF filing, with this being a process that other issuers have followed before. Should this happen, Franklin Templeton will join Canary, Grayscale, 21 Shares, Van Eck, and Bitwise in a race to bring Solana ETFs to the market space. Notably, that essentially Franklin Templeton has filed documents for Solana Trust is no surprise. The asset manager expressed a bullish outlook for Solana as early as July 2024. The company said at a time that Solana is among other exciting crypto projects that could drive up adoption alongside Bitcoin and Ethereum. One factor essentially signaling the maturity of Solana is the network's essentially early technological growth pains. How essentially having approved spot ETFs of Bitcoin and Ethereum in 2024, the US Securities Exchange Commission has signaled a potential addition of more products with the acknowledgement of forms of the 19B4 filings for Litecoin and Solana ETF applications recently and XRP. The SEC has looked into all of these essential application filings right now, which is something that Gary Gensler didn't do in the past. Gary Gensler never looked inside the SEC filings in the past for the altcoins, except the Bitcoin and Ethereum. The SEC recently confirmed Grayscale and Canary applications for listings of essentially on their ETF for the two new altcoins. And essentially, indeed, Bloomberg analysts James and Eric point to a 90% chance that the regulator will give a nod of approval to Litecoin ETFs as well. We should be expecting a lot more ETF essentially applications being approved very, very soon regarding the ETF applications that are happening, which is XRP, Solana, HBAR, Litecoin, and Cardano as well, which we're about to go through next. Actually, no, we're going to go more Solana news, and then we're going to go to Cardano news. So here it is. Canary Solana ETF moves forward in the SEC review. As I was saying, the SEC is actually looking into the altcoin ETFs for the first time ever. And they started to look into the Canary Capital for Solana ETF, has officially filed essentially for a Solana Sol exchange, marking the second such filing after Grayscale's proposal last week. In a regulatory filing, the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, invited public comments on the Canary, essentially Solana Trust, a proposed exchange-traded ETF that would integrate Solana investments into the mainstream financial industry. The SEC has now opened a 21-day public comment period, after which it will either approve or deny or extend their decision regarding a Solana ETF. Many experts believe that Solana and other altcoins will get their own ETFs this year, though it's unclear when and in what order. The SEC now seems essentially more open to crypto, and that is essentially under its previous administration, Gary Gensler. If approved, this would allow mainstream investors to buy Solana through traditional financial market spaces, similar to how essentially Bitcoin ETFs work, and Grayscale Solana ETFs is slightly ahead in the process. Its outcomes could indicate how the SEC would handle canary applications. To be fairly honest, all of the applications are now being looked into by the SEC, which again has never happened before. Now, what we're going to be talking about next is the New York Stock Exchange. The New York Stock Exchange has filed, New York Stock Exchange Acura has filed for XRP, they filed for HBAR, they filed for Solana, and now they're listing essentially Cardano ETFs. New York Stock Exchange Acura files to list Grayscale's first spot Cardano ETF. The New York Stock Exchange, a subsidiary of the New York Stock Exchange Group, has officially filed a proposal with the US SEC to list and trade shares of Grayscale's Cardano Trust, making the asset manager's first standalone investment product for the other cryptocurrency. According to the filings, Coinbase Custody Trust Company will act as the custodian for the fund's assets, and BNY Mellon Asset Essentially Servicing will serve as the administrator. Now, Coinbase highlighted that the approval of this product aims to enhance market competition and essentially expand investment options for traders. The proposed rule change will facilitate the listing and trading of essentially additional type of exchange-traded products, and the first such product based on ADA, which will essentially enhance competition among market participants, the benefits of investors, and the marketplace. The New York Stock Exchange Acura stated in its filings, the cryptocurrency ETF space is experiencing a significant increase in filings. Bloomberg's ETF analyst Eric essentially highlighted that the list is just one of nearly 60 cryptocurrency ETF proposals submitted this year. 60 crypto ETFs proposals this year. This reflects the rapid pace at which asset managers are essentially maneuvering to introduce new investment products aimed involving essentially regulatory adjustments. And the New York Stock Exchange also submitted the 19B4 filing seeking to convert Grayscale's XRP Trust into the spot essentially ETF. Meanwhile, other firms are also viewing their approvals on essentially the CBO the BZX exchange in terms of the lodged filings on behalf of 4 other asset managers in Canary Capital, WisdomTree, 21 Shares, and Bitwise to list XRP, HBAR, and Solana. An exchange refilled applications also for 21 Shares, Bitwise, and Vanik and Canary Capitals also to introduce more ETFs in essentially coming months or in the coming quarters. Notably, Grayscale is pushing for Cardano ETFs as a part of its efforts to expand cryptocurrency offerings inside the United States. The SEC acknowledged Grayscale's amendments filings to convert a Solana trust into a spot ETF. It could also give the exact same green light to Cardano to be happening. Bloomberg ETF analyst James and essentially Eric said that the SEC's engagements with these filings represents a shift that has never happened before in the SEC's history, pretty much. That is completely true because Gary Gensler was in charge of the SEC previously, and obviously he didn't look into any sort of filings. The guy was an absolute waste of space, to be fairly honest, a waste of time. But yes, if you are somebody that's holding Cardano, that's amazing news for anybody that's holding Cardano. To be fairly honest, Cardano getting listed on the New York Stock Exchange is incredible news, because it pretty much puts it on the same level as essentially XRP, Solana, HBAR, and everybody else that has an ETF filing going forward as well. Now, the next news we are going to be covering, essentially moving on from the Solana and ETF applications for Cardano to Binance. Binance and the SEC agreeing to pause their lawsuit for 60 days. What does this really mean is what we're going to talk about. Before we go through that, let's consider the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions, put it down in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. So let's consider the comment section first, and then we go straight into the Binance and SEC news regarding 60-day pause, and what does it actually mean for this case and any other case that the SEC has still going on. Let's see what's going on inside the comment section. Miles, you're thinking about trade for the camels. USDT will maybe turn out as another upside down pineapple story or similar. I think so. I think USDT is going to be the final, situation inside the crypto space. But I did say a long time ago, there are two outcomes essentially for USDT. Either USDT will get faded out is one outcome. It will just get faded out with another stablecoin taking its place, RLUSD and USDC, or USDT is going to cause a slight market crash before it dips completely outside the market space because it really doesn't have the backings it claims to have. Now, Sol has been amazing this bull run. Sol has done very well for itself in this bull run, to be fairly honest. Share the live. Scott, let's go. Joe says, will Swift eventually become obsolete due to XRP? Or is there some sort of integration going on? Great question. The subject of Ripple essentially being integrated with Swift or XRP being integrated into Swift is always a topic in hand. But is it really going to happen in the long term? No. Look, XRP and Swift can come together. Essentially, Swift can utilize the XRP ledger moving forward. The issue is the Swift name. No country trusts Swift. Every country is scared on the back of their minds that one day Swift will decide to sanction them. So Swift pretty much needs to go away. And there needs to be a new payment system or messaging standard or payment system or whatever in place. It needs to happen. Because every country is pretty much always thinking about, one day they can get sanctioned by Swift. That's a possibility of happening. Which is why I said a long time ago, when Swift essentially partnered with Chainlink for their CC, essentially PI, I said, it's amazing news for Chainlink. But on the other hindsight, it's still Swift, which is the downfall, which is it's not a payment tool or a messaging standard. It's a political tool. It goes around and sanctions countries. It sanctioned Russia. It sanctioned a few other countries. It even has the capability of sanctioning China even more, and so on and so on. So it can be integrated, yes, but the XRP ledger can, over time, make Swift obsolete. It doesn't matter how big these companies are. They can essentially go obsolete over time. I'll give you an example. We are talking about technology here, and technology moves incredibly fast, at a very fast pace. So keep it on the technology category. A long time ago, there was a phone manufacturer by the name of Nokia. And if you told anyone a long time ago, because we're keeping inside the category of technology here, not going beyond that category, not going to the car industry or whatever, we're keeping on the category of essentially technology. A long time ago, there was a phone manufacturer by the name of Nokia. If anybody told you a long time ago that Nokia will go obsolete, people would have said, you're crazy. Nokia can't go obsolete. They're bringing innovation into the field. But it did. And then people said, BlackBerry's too huge to go obsolete. It's never going to happen. But it did. And then people said, essentially, Google essentially is, Android is too big and so on. But it did because Apple took its place and so on. But you see where I'm going with this. It's technology. Things will go obsolete. It's just, it's a thing that's always going to be happening. And this could be applied to the automotive industry as well, where car brands go obsolete because something else will come and take their place. Or it could be applied to any sort of essentially market category. Things can go obsolete. So sometimes, because when you say to people, Swift can go obsolete, people say, well, no, it can't. Swift is too big to fail. But it can. Nothing is essentially set in stone. For example, Apple is losing quite a lot of money. If you tell people Apple is failing, people say, you're crazy. But it is. Slightly. It's losing a lot of market share. So, because they came so late to the AI field, because Apple was focused on building an Apple car, which nobody was going to buy. Let's just be honest with ourselves. But then they got so late into the AI game that they were losing interest, and investors were going towards Microsoft due to Copilot, their AI essentially platform. Because Apple was focused on building a car, which nobody was ever going to drive. So it doesn't matter how big these companies are. We all talk about technology. If technology doesn't get better, every second, it's going to get left behind. That's just how it is. So on the subject of essentially, can XRP essentially make Swift eventually obsolete? Yes, it definitely can. Ripple can definitely make Swift obsolete over time. Over time, not overnight. But it can, yes. But are they going to be integrated together? They can be. But it's better if they don't and just replace them instead. If they go into them, good. If they replace them, good. Either way, we're good to go. Is 40x unrealistic, essentially, or very possible raise essentially in 2025 for serious coins such as CFX and ACH, in your opinion? Is 40x unrealistic or very possible in 2025 for serious coins such as CFX? CFX will do good inside the Chinese market space. Actually, one of the people behind CFX was praised by China's parliament, which was interesting to see, and he received an award as well in China. ACH, incredible, essentially financial tool, off ramps and on ramps that they do. They have a multitude of licensings pretty much worldwide, even in American states. Can they do a 40x? Look, what I would say is consider variable change. Under the correct set of regulations, anything's possible when it comes to the financial sector. Nortal networks, AOL, IBM, PCs, pretty much yes. Facts. Absolute facts, Mickey. Now, Binance. Binance and the SEC agreed to a 60-day pause in legal proceedings. Binance and the U.S. Securities Exchange Commission, SEC, have jointly filed a motion to pause the essential latter's lawsuit against the crypto exchange for 60 days. This action essentially follows the recent appointment of Chairman Mark, who's the acting chairman of the SEC, who assumed leadership of the SEC last month. The motion references the SEC's newly established essential crypto task force as a potential influence on the case and states that the work of this task force may impact and facilitate the potential resolution of this case. After the 60-day period, both parties intend to submit a joint status report to assess whether an extension of the stay is warranted. This move, essentially, as per the Fox business correspondent Eleanor Turret, could set a precedent for other non-fraud cases involving cryptocurrency firms such as Ripple, Coinbase, and Kraken to seek similar pauses in legal proceedings. According to the court filings, both parties believe that the task force work may impact and facilitate the potential resolution of this case. The temporary stay is designed to prevent prejudice against either party and could conserve essentially resources by potentially avoiding further discovery on the merits. The development comes a month after the U.S. Supreme Court declined to hear an appeal from Binance and its founder, CZ, allowing a class action lawsuit to proceed. The Supreme Court's decision upheld essentially a prior ruling by the U.S. Court of essentially Appeals for the Second Circuit, which determined that the United States Securities Exchange Commission laws applied to Binance despite the lack of physical headquarters in the country. This ruling was essentially based on the fact that transactions by American investors were processed on U.S. servers, thereby subjecting the crypto exchange to the country's regulations. But the latest crypto overhaul under President Donald Trump's leadership is expected to soften a blow on several ongoing legal battles. As reported earlier, the SEC established a dedicated crypto task force on January 21st, led by Commissioner Hester Pierce. The main objective is to develop a comprehensive, transparent regulatory framework for digital assets that stands in the stark contrast to the SEC's previous enforcement-centric approach under essentially former President Joe Biden. The task force will focus on clarifying the classifications of digital assets, defining registration requirements, and outlining disclosure frameworks for crypto entities. The task force is also tasked with collaborating with industry stakeholders and other regulatory agencies to harmonize regulations and reduce jurisdictional overlap. Okay. For the first time ever, we're seeing the crypto task force that was created by the SEC the moment Gary Gensler left overnight come into effect. Because the crypto task force that Hester Pierce is in charge is actually doing something good. The pausing of the Binance lawsuit for 60 days is incredible because they said that they're pausing it to come to some sort of a dismissal or settlement for the Binance case and that it doesn't need to move along any further. Now, why did essentially the crypto task force choose the Binance case to start off with and not the Coinbase case or the Ripple case? Well, because they're much more heftier cases, to be fairly honest. But the Binance case has an interesting twist because it did have some allegations of fraud in it. So if this particular case gets resolved by the crypto task force that was created overnight when Gary Gensler left and Hester Pierce in charge, that's a positive note. Because if the Binance case can be settled and dusted, even though, with the $4 billion fine they had to pay and all the things that came with it and allegations of fraud and everything else, if this particular case gets resolved, then a case like Ripple will just be like a walk in the park because Ripple didn't essentially commit any sort of fraud. They didn't do any sort of illicit activities. Their CEOs didn't get $4 billion, their CEOs didn't go to prison. Ripple never paid a $4 billion fine, or so on and so on. So if they solve a case like Binance, with all the allegations of fraud and the $4 billion fine and CZ going to prison, if they can resolve that case, then the Ripple case will be like a walk in the park for them. That's the reason why they chose Binance. Because if you really think about it, that's the case with all the issues inside of it. Even though there should have never been, CZ, I've always said, is innocent. I've always said CZ is innocent. He's an absolute legend for the crypto space. But if they resolve a case like that, the Ripple case is a walk in the park. Honestly. Because the SEC said previously, Hester Pierce and Mark, the acting chairman of the SEC, previously said that the only cases that won't be resolved, essentially are going to have difficulties being resolved, the dismissed or settlements, is fraud cases and any essentially crypto cases related to fraud. But now they're resolving the Binance case, which is a big key area in that situation. That gets resolved. Ripple case, Coinbase case, Kraken case will be a walk in the park, easily. So there's a reason why they chose the Binance case. Because if anybody was thinking in the back of their heads, why didn't they choose the Ripple case to do first? Why didn't they, pause the Ripple case first? Well, because if they solve this one, it will be like a domino effect for the rest of the cases of just walk in the park, settlement or dismissal. Now, EU is what we're going to be talking about next. The EU is very, very heavily focused on essentially AI. And France has been the one that's trying to lead this whole AI space. So the EU president pledges over $206 billion to AI developments to stay ahead of the game. A lot of countries today came to essentially to the EU to sign some sort of an agreement. The UK came over, the US came over, about 60 countries came over to sign some sort of an AI agreement. Even China came over to be under the same sets of rules and regulations for AI. Ironically, the United Kingdom didn't sign it. And it was essentially rules and policies that the US developed for other countries to sign. And then the UK rejected it. But putting that to one side, China even signed it as well, just to be, essentially a bit more, so you have a better understanding of what happened. Even China signed it. But again, putting that to one side, the EU is going to be investing $206 billion into AI development. So here it is. During the recent AI summit in Paris, EU President der Leyen pledged that the bloc would accumulate $206 billion, which is around 200 billion euros, for investments into artificial intelligence in the region. Into the amount raised will combine $150 billion to be raised by investors and industries, and 50 billion essentially euros that the bloc will top up on top of it. Van der Leyen explained that the US and China had not yet won the AI dominance race. And she further mentioned that the funding would introduce the highest private-public sector partnership to develop transparent and secure AI technology. The Commission President also highlighted the relevance of the application, including fueling essentially gigafactories to process larger data models. The European Commission President pointed essentially out the backlash in the region was receiving due to its alleged lagging behind in the AI regulation development space. Von der Leyen also said that the statements were incorrect and that the AI race was far from over. She added that the EU would focus more in industry-specific AI applications to place the region ahead of the race. While every country pretty much around the world is trying to aim for the hub, essentially when it comes to cryptocurrencies, the capital of cryptocurrencies, France has been aiming to become the capital of AI for a while now. Further commenting, von der Leyen explained that the need for essentially the EU to approach AI developments uniquely, including combining global talent and leveraging manufacturing data. She also stated that the advantage of essentially of the approaches it will take, including for sectors like healthcare and security, while boosting the region's competitiveness in the industry. The French President Emmanuel Macron, who's an absolute weasel, spoke during a recent CNN interview on AI progress on the EU. According to Macron, the region was not in the AI race and insisted that the region was lagging behind. The French president added that the region required a strong AI agenda to bridge the current gap between the US and China's progress in the industry. Macron further expressed worry about the EU's future standing as an AI consumer instead of an AI leader. The interview report pointed out that the French president advocated for AI deployments during the recent AI summit, including essentially mentioning that French AI company Mistral, the company is strongly affiliated with technological developments, as seen in the focus on essentially nuclear energy, and its plans to unveil the largest supercomputer in the world in the coming months. That is true. OpenAI is incredible. If anybody uses ChatGPT, it's pretty much, in my point of view, the #1 AI tool out there by a long shot. A lot of people, tried to say DeepSeek was better, or it was better than OpenAI. In reality, it isn't. DeepSeek is absolute trash, which steals your data and sends it back to Alibaba servers in China, and that's true. That's an actual fact. But out of all these AI spaces out there, Gemini, Copilot, ChatGPT, and so on, ChatGPT is definitely taking the ranks. OpenAI is definitely taking the ranks by a long shot. Now, did you know that Paris actually has a company, an AI company, that is also trying to take the ranks? And in their words, this AI company has an immense amount of funding. It's going to be using nuclear power. It's going to be an absolute supercomputer. And it's going to take the world by storm. Now, they have invested an incredible amount of money, and as you can see, they're still raising money for it. And the companies that have invested into this AI project are like Microsoft, IBM, banks, major VC companies. The list of essentially investments is ridiculous, and the list of the companies that have invested into it is even more ridiculous. So, imagine ChatGPT of what we have now, which is top of the range of AI tools. This one is coming in on a whole different playing field. They're not using essentially, mining. They're not using server factories. They're going to be using nuclear power. So it's a whole other playing field they're doing right now. Now, Macron has also teased building about 20% of the world's data centers within Europe. So they're going on a long field right now. And a December Euronews report voiced worries similar to those of Macron, saying that the region was at risk of becoming a digital colony instead of a digital sovereignty. The report cited that the findings of the essentially French Parliamentary Office for Scientific and Technological Assessments, the OPECST, which explored how the US currently dominates AI. The authorities, essentially authors, commented on the need for policy creation that would advance AI and technology, so digital technology in the EU. The report further suggested that Germany, France, Italy, and Netherlands and Spain launch a joint European AI project. The US Vice President J.D. Vance also spoke during this summit. It was a major event that America was invited to, China was invited to, the entire EU was invited to, the UK was there. Every essentially G20 country was pretty much present at this event that happened in Paris regarding AI. And even J.D. Vance mentioned and did some speeches that essentially the Trump administration would ensure that the country would prioritize its leadership in this sector. The president has taken several steps to fuel the U.S. dominance in technology, including signing an executive order dedicated to the expansion of digital assets and AI technology, is what J.D. Vance was saying. J.D. Vance further essentially bashed the EU for its steps towards AI expansions in the region, saying tighter regulations will not be favorable for the industry's developments. And the vice president further highlighted that the risk of averting approach would cripple the progress in the AI industry. Vance insisted that the US would take steps against the EU's policies that could tighten the screws on any US-based tech companies. The US vice president also warned that the country would take steps to block other countries' efforts to use AI to create propaganda and strengthen their military intelligence and surveillance and gather essentially further data. J.D. Vance added that more action would be taken against authoritarian regimes that use AI to undermine the national security of other regions. AI can definitely be used as a very powerful tool in a negative way. And the United States is very fully aware of that. So what is the United States doing to stop the EU from becoming number one? Because the US wants to become number one. A lot of people might say, well, why is the US getting involved in stopping other countries from becoming number one in the AI space? Well, whoever becomes number one in AI gets to control a lot of data, which going into a digital world is pretty much more powerful than oil, believe it or not. And I'm not the only one saying this. Even Saudi Arabia has came out before and said that data is going to be more valuable than oil the more we go into this digital world. So whoever is number one is pretty much controlling the data in the world. It's going to become a massive data center. And the US obviously wants to become the number one data center in the world. They want to control the data rather than France controlling data. I'll be honest, I don't want Macron with his weasel little hands from France anywhere near anyone's data, to be fairly honest. I'd rather have Donald Trump, JD Vance, Elon Musk, and anybody else in control of essentially the world's data centers than Macron with his weasel hands, to be fairly honest. But what is the essentially US doing to slow down their progress? Well, the US is going to be telling every US company to stop investing into foreign AI projects and instead invest into eternal US AI companies. And let's grow our country first before we start investing into other countries, which is not a bad idea. Now, moving off essentially the AI progress in terms of the EU happening to the SEC, Hester Pierce again. But before we actually talk about this, let's go start the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions, put it down in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. But yeah, the further we go into this digital future, the more important data is going to become. And yeah, I don't think anybody's data should be in the hands of Macron with his weasel little hands. To be very honest, I don't trust Macron even for a second. His own country doesn't trust him. Never mind the rest of the world. Okay, let's see where we're at the comment section. I'm going to go straight to the next news, which is regarding Hester Pierce on our recent speech. More recent speeches. China is building 20 new nuclear plants. France has a chance since their nuclear are still running. Trump is going to approve mass expansion of nuclear plants. He is, that's facts. EU is chasing windmills. I agree, Mickey, yeah. It's true. But it is a race. Right now, there are two races going on. One race is for who's going to become the hub of blockchain. The second race that's going on is who's going to be hub of data. One related to payments and one related to obviously data, which are two main factors of running this digital world. And also AI can be used, as I said, for military bases as well, which is what essentially JD Vance has said. JD Vance has said that if any country is very advanced in AI, they can use that AI technology for their military bases, for propaganda, which is the last thing you want. You don't want bad people in charge of AI technology, is what I'm trying to say. You want good-hearted people in control of AI, which is difficult to find these days, but there are some left. Now, Hester Pierce, SEC Commissioner, once again, she did an interview with essentially Bloomberg talking about the crypto space. And this is what she said. SEC Commissioner Hester Pierce defended her approach to cryptocurrency regulations on a Bloomberg interview today, prioritizing innovation-friendly approach rather than restrictive oversight. So Hester Pierce was invited on Bloomberg to talk about the crypto space, to talk about her approach currently inside the SEC and her previous approach in the SEC. Hester Pierce, the head of Securities and Exchange Commission's Crypto Task Force, said in a recent Bloomberg interview she does not consider herself to be an advocate of the industry. Rather, she is a freedom maximalist. She pushed back against the notion that essentially overly supportive of crypto industries. She criticized the SEC's current essentially approach, arguing that the agency has placed roadblocks after roadblocks, the previous essential approach, roadblocks after roadblocks in front of those trying to engage with the system. Instead, she called for policies that allows experimentation when it comes to cryptocurrencies. She also wanted to say, all I'm asking is that we have an innovation policy that allows people to innovate and try new things inside the blockchain sector. When asked whether crypto has a purpose, Hester Pierce pointed on to its potential to foster coordination and trust among people globally. The technology allows people to coordinate in ways that were not possible before. She said, adding that blockchain could integrate into traditional financial systems while essentially also enabling new use cases beyond financial markets tokenization. Hester Peirce also addressed concerns about whether essentially her philosophy translates to advocating for no regulations. She said, we live in a country where we have a very essentially established financial regulatory framework, she said, clarifying that her stance does not mean a free-for-all. She argued that for the importance of working with existing statutory frameworks, Hester Peirce said, we have rules in place and those rules will be enforced. She doesn't mean that she's going to be enforcing essentially by action anymore regarding, what Gary Gensler was doing in the past. What she is trying to say on Bloomberg is we're going to establish some rules inside the crypto sector and we want people to follow them. If you go against it, then you'll be essentially sued by the SEC, but no more suing you for no apparent reason is what's going to be happening. So she's saying that, of course, we're going to be having rules, which they should be, to be fairly honest. Otherwise, banks and institutions will have difficulty touching that market space in general. But if anybody crosses that line, then they'll be essentially sued. Also, more on Hester Peirce. Hester Peirce was also asked, why hasn't things moved along fast enough? And this is what she said. Hester Peirce said, speaking virtually at the Federalist Society panel, Commissioner Hester Peirce said, essentially, the reason why they're not making major decisions inside the SEC yet is because they're waiting for one particular person to take their seat. So here it is. Hester Peirce, heading the U.S. Exchange Commission Crypto Task Force, said the agency will likely wait until the Senate has confirmed chair before deciding on the agenda for the crypto digital asset space. Paul Atkins. Speaking virtually at the Federalist Society panel, Commissioner Hester Peirce said, essentially, it was a little premature for the SEC to begin setting a regulatory agenda for cryptocurrencies without a chair confirmed by the Senate who could take charge. Mark essentially assumed the position of acting chairman following the departure of Gary Gensler on January 20th. But the Senate is expected to vote on President Donald Trump's nomination of former essentially SEC Commissioner Paul Atkins very soon. Acting chairman essentially Mark is doing a good job, she said, and the agenda is working. We haven't stopped working, she's saying, but we assume that sometime soon, if Chairman Atkins is confirmed as a chairman, who come in and want to set his agenda. Now, 1 week after taking office, Trump's administration nominated Atkins to be the SEC commissioner for a term ending essentially in June 2031. Lawmakers essentially in the Senate Banking Committee had yet to consider his nomination, which would require a majority of the Senate's present to choose to move Trump's essential pick to the chamber of floor votes. Peirce also added that the SEC was trying to figure out a path forward for rulemaking of digital assets. Appeals Court also issued a ruling in January that said it would not order the commission to develop clear rules of the road for crypto firms, but essentially largely agreed with Coinbase's position that the SEC made in arbitrary and essentially decisions in denying rulemaking requests. Following the formation of the SEC Crypto Task Force, the Commission requested delays for at least 2 of its previously filed enforcement actions in different jurisdictions, suggesting that the agency working and developing a regulatory framework could affect its positions. An Illinois judge granted the SEC request for 30 days extension on a crypto case against Cumberland DRW, but a District of Columbia court had not responded to a similar request for other commissions. Now, Peirce and Mark, both Republicans, currently sit in the SEC with Democratic Commissioner Caroline Crenshaw. It's unclear whether Trump intends to nominate a 5th commissioner to fill the leadership at the financial regulator should Atkins be confirmed. So if you're wondering, why isn't the SEC, moving still fast enough? It's because on some stage, on some sort of level, they're waiting for Paul Atkins to take his seat. However, Hester Peirce has confirmed that even though we're waiting for Paul Atkins to take his seat as the acting chairman of the SEC, we are still working. We haven't stopped working, and we're still trying our best to bring out some sort of regulations, some sort of foundation for everybody to be able to move forward. And what they can't do is dismiss cases. Because if they're waiting for Paul Atkins, they're waiting for him to set the regulations. They're not waiting for him to dismiss the cases. Hence why they put a pause on the Binance case. So right now, Hester Peirce can, one by one, with Mark, acting chairman of the SEC, start dismissing these cases in settlements and so on. obviously through legal proceedings or having a sit down and pause in lawsuits. But in terms of an actual regulation process, they're waiting for Paul Atkins. Now, does that mean that they have to wait for Paul Atkins and they cannot take any further steps? No, they can take further steps. A green light coming from the Trump administration. So that's also one thing to consider as well. Now, Wall Street. Wall Street banks are gearing up for crypto deals in Trump's pro-crypto policies. One particular market space is heavily waiting around for something major to happen, and that is Wall Street's, in terms of institutions. Also, banks are waiting for the next footsteps. So relatable to essentially the regulations and policies. Major Wall Street banks are ramping up efforts to secure crypto-related deals, anticipating a major wave of IPOs and capital raises under President Donald Trump's pro-crypto policies, according to Bloomberg. They're waiting for IPOs, they're waiting for ETFs, they're waiting for regulations in general. Wall Street is right now waiting on the sidelines to pounce on the crypto space. Morgan Stanley is actively seeking clients for initial public offerings IPOs, while the investment banking division of Bank of America plans to assist digital asset firms with their transactions. This is crazy to think about it. Bank of America is ready for essentially the cryptocurrency sector to process transactions. Morgan Stanley is ready to help blockchain companies go public. Meanwhile, according to sources familiar with the matter, the Royal Bank of Canada, which completed its first cryptocurrency deal last year, is looking to expand its involvements in the sector even more. The report also noted that Trump's administration has launched a crypto task force, essentially led by Hester Peirce, SEC Commissioner, and exploring the feasibilities of a national stockpile. Now, several crypto firms, including Gemini, Bullish, Circle, Internet Financial, Kraken, are also considering IPOs, including Ripple as well, but there's a 50-50 chance, which could generate significant bank fees. The report highlighted that regulatory uncertainty had previously discouraged major financial institutions from deeper involvements in the sector. While Morgan Stanley missed out on Coinbase's 2021 listings, it has since helped the exchange sell convertible bonds and is positioning for future deals. RBC recently arranged a bond sale, essentially for Core Scientific, a crypto mining firm, and is seeking increased interest from Bitcoin-related issuers. At Bank of America, discussions about crypto deals are intensifying, with CEO Brian signaling that traditional banks are prepared to capitalize on new opportunities if clear regulations emerge, and the reports added. Beyond Wall Street, Trump's re-election has significantly impacted global financial hubs, particularly in Singapore's wealth management sector, where there is a notable increase in cryptocurrency investments. High net worth individuals are also allocating more funds to digital assets, leading to a 2 to 3-fold increase essentially in clients and onboarding Synergy Bank shortly after the elections. And this trend also highlights the growing importance of cryptocurrencies in global investment strategies. Okay, what institutions are really waiting for? Essentially, Wall Street is waiting for, banks are waiting for, Bank of America is making speeches right now. They're waiting for these particular essentially situations to happen. They're waiting for IPOs to happen because they can make a lot of money from IPOs. They're waiting essentially for the payment systems to get up and running because Bank of America has made statements that they want to do payments, bankers already inside America for cryptocurrencies. They're waiting for tokenizations to happen. They're waiting for the data section to happen. They're waiting for Web3 to happen. They want to get involved in more startup companies, everything related to crypto. And again, this is all because of Trump, which is incredible news. So you have the SEC dismissing essentially the Binance case, pretty much putting a pause on it, which will cause a domino effect for the rest of the cases. Regulations coming in, and Wall Street is pretty much ready. Banks in America are ready to pounce on the crypto space. Institutions are ready to pounce on the crypto space in every field. On the topic of tokenizations, Ripple also today released another blog post on their own website talking about tokenization and how of a large, incredible market space it's going to become, and how much foot Ripple has in that particular essentially category of a market space as well. So on that note of Wall Street is ready to jump on the blockchain space, and they're just waiting for essentially, think of it as a race, and the guy with the starter gun is just, the rest of the essentially banks and institutions are lining up. They're waiting for the guy with the starter gun to shoot in midair so they can start running towards blockchain projects. That's pretty much how it looks like right now. On that note, we have reached the endings of tonight's live. If you're watching this for the first time ever, this essentially is The CMF Live stands for Crypto Miles Family. My name is Miles. I go by the persona of Crypto Miles. I'm the host of this live Monday to Friday, 11:25 p.m. UK time onwards. If you're watching this for the first time ever on this live, I talk about the most recent news that's happening around the world in terms of cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, regulations, vital information for you to know about. We do Q&As on this live as well. And essentially, the disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. And on tonight's live, episode 260, we talked about essentially Wall Street waiting to pounce on the crypto space. We talked about Hester Peirce in terms of their crypto agenda moving forward. We talked about Hester Peirce in terms of also the crypto regulation stance. We talked about the EU getting more involved essentially inside the AI field. We also talked about on tonight's live regarding Binance and the SEC pausing their lawsuits and what's the indications of that. We talked about the New York Stock Exchange filing for a essentially Cardano ETF. We also went through Canary, essentially Solana ETF moves moving forward, the SEC, Franklin Templeton Solana ETF moves. We also talked about on tonight's live regarding Ukraine fast-tracking their crypto legalization progress. And we talked about Jerome Powell regarding his speech on CBDCs, stablecoins, cryptocurrencies, debanking situations. And we went through topics related to essentially key insight reports that are going to be coming out regarding inflation reports, are we going to have rate cuts or not, and the golden age of cryptocurrencies. So let's go to the comment section first. Obviously, before we do go, I want to ask, I don't want to miss out on anyone's questions. So let's go through the comment section first and go straight in. I hope they regulate meme coins and jail all those who rug pull. It damages the reputation of serious players. I agree 100% yes. How much XRP is enough? Whatever you can afford. Miles is being concerned about our personal crypto wallets being hacked eventually with quantum computing a huge concern. If so, should we be looking at an institutional wallet? No. Technically, institutional wallets won't be available to the retail section in any sort of a way, but quantum computing in the wrong hands is very bad for, but again, I said this before as well, consider this. So the more essentially quantum computing progresses, the more blockchain is also upping their security. So blockchains are also upping their security. So the catch-up is going to be a Tom and Jerry type of race. So you're okay. Don't worry about it. Good night, everyone. Bull XRP. See you tomorrow sometimes usually as well. So don't be concerned regarding quantum computing in any sort of a way. But on the subject of being concerned, if you are an iPhone user, this is very important. Before everyone goes, this is very important. If you are an iPhone user and you're watching this right now, Apple today announced that their iPhones are very vulnerable to one particular malware. And if you are somebody that's essentially going to get affected by this malware, this virus will take over your iPhone device completely. It won't let you have access to it. It won't let you charge it. And the hackers will have full control of your iPhone in terms of data and everything else. So if you are an iPhone user and you're watching this right now, Apple has released a new update, security update, to patch this situation. So straight after this live, go to your iPhone settings, go to the update section, and check for the latest update that Apple has released today. It's a security update that everybody needs to download on their iPhones, because by their words, your iPhone right now is extremely vulnerable to hacks. So go to your iPhone settings, download the latest security update from Apple, from your own smartphone, right now, straight after this live. Apple has released this as a notification today on the news, if you haven't seen it. Good night, everyone. Bull XRP. See you tomorrow, same time as usual, especially if you're somebody that's, essentially holding, their wallets on their iPhones. Good night, Miles, and all CMF. JP, see you tomorrow, but at the same time as usual. Thanks, Miles. Good night, CMF. Often see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Thank you for all your time and knowledge. Always dependable. Let's go eat. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Good night, Miles and CMF. Take care and see you tomorrow. Mike, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Thanks, Legend. Night and day, CMF. Let's go, Shelly. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Thank you, Miles, for your insights. We appreciate you. Night, everyone. Joe, see you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. Thank you. Thank you. Was so unbelievable. Thank you. Such a great live and so informative. Adi, see you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. Apple update. Let's go, Shelly. Good night, Miles and CMF. Great live. See you tomorrow. Great show tonight, Miles. Thank you for all you do for us. Let's go, Troy. I will see everybody tomorrow. Same timing as usual. 11:25 p.m. UK time. If you're watching for the first time ever, you can tune in tomorrow for episode 261 of the CMF Live. We're on episode 261 for tomorrow. Today was episode 260. Is that for iPads too? I think so. Check on your essentially iPhone settings. Check on your iPhone settings for the latest update. If it is related to iPads as well, they said iPhones only, but just check just in case. There's a security update that everybody needs to download for their iPhones, especially if you keep your wallets on your iPhones, your crypto wallets. I'll see everybody tomorrow, same timing as usual. Everybody have a great day or a good night, depending on where you're around the world. Thank you so much to everybody who liked this live, retweeted this live, put a comment outside the live, hashtag the XRP Army, and thanks so much to everyone who liked the YouTube, so watching us from YouTube. I'll see everybody tomorrow, same time as usual, at 11:25 p.m. United Kingdom time. See everybody tomorrow, same time as usual, for episode 261. Have a good day or a good night, depending on where you're around the world.